Hi, this is Megha Joshi, the host of the Boardroom Zen podcast. This show is created for the ambitious business leaders. Are you someone wanting to play big? Want to possess a strong brand and executive presence that makes you belong in every room you walk into? And all of this without putting your personal life on hold? If the answer to those questions is yes, then you are in the right place. In this show, I sit down with best-in-class leaders to distill their wisdom while sharing what helped me stand out as a Fortune 100 executive. So let's get started. Our guest today is a dear friend and a high-powered corporate executive turned author and speaker. His extraordinary journey, transitioning from a homeless high school dropout to an acclaimed executive at both Comcast and the tech unicorn Dutchie, is truly awe-inspiring. I am so thrilled to welcome Sean Ilenrey once again to our show. Sean, welcome.
I'm so glad to be back. It's good to see you.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, Sean, you are the only guest that I am bringing back on my show. So that speaks a lot because you must have so much brewing in your mental space, because for me to bring that guest back, there must be incredible value for my listeners. So thank you for joining me.
No, thank you for having me.
And so, Sean, before we get into the more lighter stuff, let's start with something more intense, okay? So from one travel junkie to another, what's the one place you've recently been to that left you speechless? And by the way, this question comes your way because I know you're an avid traveler, not just for business, but for pleasure. You every time we talk, you're in a whole different country in the world. And I'm always rolling my eyes when I hear that. So tell me, rub it in. What's that one place?
Oh, this is tough. So to your point, I travel a lot. And sadly, even though I'm Nigerian, I've never visited Nigeria. I have never visited the African continent until this past year. And I had an opportunity to visit not only Kenya, but South Africa back to back within an 8-day period. And that experience just left me breathless because you don't know what the community is like, what the people are like until you get there. And I remember we had a moment in South Africa and we actually got a chance to experience the city, experience the office, experience a giant music festival, but also go to a safari. And just connecting and knowing that no matter where you go, people are the same. We all want to be loved. We all want to be cared for. And we all want to serve others. So it just felt good to finally be back on the continent, and definitely made me realize I need to go back more often.
Yeah, right. And it's so fascinating that although you are from that continent, you haven't really gone back and explored other parts of the continent. So I'm glad your work afforded you that opportunity, which is so priceless. And
Absolutely.
Even for me, Sean, I have to say, recently I was in Morocco a couple of months ago, and that was the highlight for me amongst all the travels I've done so far. So we have this common continent that we have so much love for, and I cannot wait to be back in Marrakesh. It's a spiritual city, and the Medinas and the walls and the people and the food and the culture, it just really speaks to you so deeply.
Absolutely. And when I went there, going to a local school where you get to meet these young high schoolers who don't have much, but they want to learn everything. And then you get to meet them as those who are adults in the workforce, and they're so passionate, so well educated, but don't necessarily have the opportunity. So being in position to say, how can we bring more global opportunities to this region, was something that it left me in a place where this is a place for the rest of my life. I need to find a way to have more impact.
How beautiful, and how purpose-driven as well. So I can't wait to see all the great things that you take to that continent to help and improvise, and exciting times ahead for sure.
Thank you.
And so, Sean, let's dive into the more juicy stuff today that we want to talk about, which is your upcoming book. And the title of that book, if I remember correctly, is You Don't Owe Happiness. And by the way, when I heard the title of your book, my jaw dropped, because these few words are so intense and they spoke so deeply to me, and I'm sure they'll speak to anyone that comes across it. So give us a 30,000 square feet view of what is this book about. Tell us more.
We as leaders Whether or not you're a corporate leader, you're a team leader, you could be a coach for a basketball team, whether you're leading a family or a group of friends, we tend to place ourselves in a position where we feel as if our job is to make sure everyone on this team is happy. And if we're not doing that, then we're not doing our jobs. And I just found the reality of that is we don't control anyone else's happiness. That is not our job. And this actually came up in a conversation with my team last year where we had to make some tough decisions as a business where we couldn't roll certain things out when we wanted to roll them out. And there was a little bit of disgruntledness because the team was saying, hey, we want these key things. And as a management team, we got to a place where we constantly were chasing, I just want to make the team happy today. And I had an epiphany and I told my team, I said, our job is not to make our teams feel happy. It's to make them feel valued and valuable. And it's really about that value-centric leadership of taking a step back and saying, am I providing you the key things that you deserve as a member of my team? Those elements that are really going to make sure that we lead to employee satisfaction. And once I had that epiphany, I said, okay, I could be happy today coming to work and love what I do. And the next day I'm not happy. It's not that my leader did something wrong. It's just I might not have wanted to wake up today. But it's not my leader's job to make me happy, but it's their job to make sure that they're creating and having the ingredients so when I get to work, I can be satisfied as an employee.
Yes, and you hit on so many wonderful points there. The one that deeply spoke to me, Sean, is the realization that we don't control anybody else's happiness, like in personal lives or in professional lives. But obviously, our ego wants us to believe that because we feel like we have control over anything and everything and everybody. And so that piece is insightful. And then the other piece you hit on is companies are focused on employee surveys and satisfaction surveys. We do so much to gauge how satisfied our employees feel. And satisfaction can, from what I recognize it could be, it's driven by some degree by how happy those employees feel, right? So the bigger question is, could we be measuring something that isn't as accurate? I mean, it's a rhetorical question here, not for you to answer, just some thought that crossed my mind.
I think you're actually right. It's funny when I take a look back and I say, okay, there's 6 pillars to what I believe makes an employee feel as if you're of value, you value them, and they are an asset to your business. And for me, for valued, that's employee feedback. Are you actually taking the feedback they're giving you in these surveys and actioning upon it? It's also making sure that you're actually helping them along their journey. Are you supporting them? Are you championing them? Are you making sure that they have a career growth? Are they getting the salary and compensation they feel is right for them? Because if you're not doing those things, I don't feel as if I'm valued in your organization. But on the flip side, for valuable, I need to feel as if I'm valuable here. I mean something here. So are you connecting the dots? You know, I know for me, the first time I was ever in one of my company QBRs, I was at this company for 3 years. And at this point, I'm a manager. And it blew my mind because I realized how big our company was and how much we had to offer. And I understood how what I was doing connected the dots to the top. I was like, yes, this is someplace I want to be. But then most importantly, as I work in this organization, in order for me to truly feel valuable, I have to feel a sense of job security. If my leader is not being fiscally responsible with our department, with our budget planning, with making sure that our company knows our worth and what we do, it doesn't matter how well you pay me. It doesn't matter if you listen to my feedback. If I don't have job security, I don't feel like I want to be here. So really, I love to take the employee surveys and just pull out these 6 elements and say, if I'm doing these things right, if the employees feel like these things are right, then we're on the right track.
Yes, and you hit on a sense of safety, right? Which I believe is one of the most core human needs, if you will, for us to feel like we are safe in that environment. Otherwise, we go into this self-preservation mode and do things to continue to keep ourselves safe, right? Absolutely. And with that, Sean, seems like the book offers a tangible framework that leaders of today can tap into and say, hey, what are some of those dimensions that I need to be mindful of as I think about making my employees feel valued and valuable, right?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I call out, and I can give a prime example of what I've done in my organization, sometimes employee surveys, they can take a full quarter, they can maybe be month to month, or they could be annual. or semi-annually, and it's just not enough feedback. And what I've learned is that maybe sometimes it also is too comprehensive where they may not even want to participate. So what we did in my department was we created what we call Be Direct with Empathy surveys, which is essentially it's an anonymous form where anybody in my department can submit a question and or feedback regarding anything they're worried about. And I, every single Monday, will record a video on camera and send it out to my team. And I'll make them as short as possible just so I can get right to the meat of the question, the message. But the key thing that I learned is that there's so many nuggets that come up in water cooler conversations that I would have never known about. Whether it is about job security, whether it is about, hey, this part of our job is stressful, or whether it's about, hey, do we have more growth opportunities, or what does this KPI mean to the overall business? To be able to address that on a weekly basis where everyone could watch it, my managers could pull it into team huddles, it dramatically improved our employee satisfaction, but it also calmed any rumors that were going on because they were hearing it from the source, and it sparked the right dialogue. And we even made better decisions as business leaders saying, based on this feedback, we should actually change this process because we can do well without it. And the benefit is that our employees feel a little bit less overworked.
Yeah, and that strategy right there, Sean, I think that's a game changer. And I can't even imagine what that does to the degree of employee trust in the organization on that team. Because majority of organizations I look around and I worked at, they do this 6-month or annual check-in, which almost feels like an administrative check in the box requirement,
Yes.
if you will. It doesn't feel real, intentional, and focused on the employee. It feels like it's focused on everything else. It's
Yes.
focused on the metrics and so on. And so having that near real time piece of feedback and touch base with the employees and making them feel heard, I think that's just pure gem.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
And so thank you for sharing that. And the other piece, Sean, as you were talking that crossed my mind is we as leaders, and I've been guilty of that as a leader, I just want to bust some of the myths when it comes to maintaining or elevating employee happiness, right? In
Yes.
some of the corporations I worked at, as a leader, we would do something called the Dunkin' Run, where the leader in the morning would run to the closest Dunkin' Donut. They'll grab coffee for the team. They'll bring donuts and bagels to make sure the team felt cared and that they were happy, they were starting the day on a great note. And yes, that goes a long way, but it falls flat if the leader isn't really making the team feel heard and isn't really setting up a growth trajectory for them, right? And so there's a lot of things we unintentionally do as we go into those different corporations because we feel those are the right things to do. So anything you've seen in terms of employee happiness that you've seen others do or you've done that you feel is sort of pushing the envelope a little too further?
I'm a big fan of engagement. How do we connect with them? How do we make them feel supported? Then how do we also meet them where they are? I think right now in our economy, everyone's worried about compensation. You can't escape that. And I found we can have pizza parties, we can have events, we can do raffles. But at the end of the day, you're going to get that question of, hey, are we going to do anything with my compensation?
Right.
And what I learned was if we can align their growth in a way where it's to say, you're an employee, you've been in your role, you're more tenured. You've proven yourself, your KPIs are higher than someone else who's just walking in. How do we focus more on inline promotions? That way, can I take this role and instead of saying this is this one role and you get that 1% increase a year, can I say this role now has 3 different stages? So now you can actually progress. So now you're in a position where as you perform better and get more tenure, you qualify to go to the next level because not everybody wants to get promoted and do a new role. Not everybody wants that. They just want credit for where they are today. So what that sparks is when you have an inline promotion process, the leadership team gets more engaged because now you're communicating to your team and everyone's bought in on the scorecard and you can say, look how you're progressing. You're doing an outstanding job. And now we want to recognize you. I think that's so important. The other thing I've done is I've brought awards into my own department. We have our overall company awards, but I believe if you can take some of your budgeted dollars and say, how do we recognize our employees in the department? And not just on the things that impact your budget or your KPIs. let them vote on certain things. Let your team identify, this is the culture champion. This is someone who's there for me whenever I need them. And I've learned that when you focus on just your KPIs or let's say your overall KPI, you may have the same top 5 people winning all the time. But when you can take those KPIs and break them out, now you'll discover people who are really good in one area and maybe not so good here, but they're getting recognized here, so it motivates them to do better here. So by combining awards that are just for our department, that are based on KPIs, but breaking that out in a way where they get recognized for the areas they're strong, but then also having those non-KPI based awards that the team can vote on, you build a culture of others wanting to give back to one another and wanting to recognize one another, because recognition goes a long way. And when it's tangible and you can hold it and show your family, you're proud of it.
Absolutely. And hey, our employees are showing up in the workplace all day long, right? They're spending a significant time of their lives in the workspace. And so it's a moment of pride for them to go back and sort of highlight to their families that they're feeling valued and they're being heard. So all these strategies you shared, Sean, are really juicy and meaty. And I see them as things that leaders can pick and apply in their own ecosystem, obviously with some modifications for sure. And so tell me more, Sean, in terms of your book, are you talking about some of these tangible strategies as well in more scenarios that people can take as a framework and then apply in their world?
Absolutely. To me, the key was tying it back to my mistakes and my successes, and then really making sure that we set the reader up for success. And even when I think about the book, you'd think that the audience would be leaders, but it actually is also employees, because now I know what to look for. Sometimes we've worked in a place and we couldn't describe why we weren't satisfied. We just couldn't put our finger on it. But when you have this framework and these pillars, you can look at it and you can say, that's what we're missing. We're doing well in these 3 areas, but these other 3 we're missing out on. I don't feel as if my leader's championing me outside of this room. So that does make me concerned. How do we improve that? And now when you give feedback to the organization, it's more poignant. You can actually say, here's the area that I would like to see get better, versus being in a place where you just don't know. So I wanted to give real world strategies, but make it so that anyone could understand them.
I love it. And to your point, that individual contributor today is going to be the leader of tomorrow. So the sooner in their career trajectory they can get exposed to a tangible framework and really pinpoint things that are working as well as things that aren't working, right? It gives them something to work from.
Absolutely.
And so, Sean, I'm sort of moving around as we're talking because there's so many questions and thoughts that creep up as you're talking in my mind. And so let's go back to sort of characterizing what you truly meant in the book when you said employee happiness, because that happiness can mean different things to different people. And so tell us more.
Yeah, when I think about happiness, and as you can see the shirt.
Yes, I love it, by the way.
It comes down to an emotion of how I'm feeling. What state am I in? What does my morale look like? We all call it morale. And when you chase that morale, it's not necessarily always going to be there. It's actually an output, not an input. So when I look at happiness, it's from the employee level. My take on it is that satisfaction will lead to more states of happiness. So even as a satisfied employee, it's only going to feel that euphoric feeling that I'm proud to be here, that I'm happy to be here today, that I'm engaged, that I'm motivated. That your goal is that you want them to feel that more times than they don't. Because like I said, even in the best environment, they won't always feel happy. And that's okay. But the key is taking that emotion and saying, I'm not going to focus on that emotion because you reserve the right to feel how you feel, but I'm going to focus on making sure I'm giving you the things that you deserve. Now, I even talk about it in the book. I do believe that we as employees, as individuals, we control career happiness. And are we happy with our careers? And I believe there's 2 key ingredients. It's your purpose multiplied by progress. And as an employee, what I'm looking for is, am I working in my purpose? Does it align with my core values of what I do? If I truly care about taking care of people and helping them get better, am I in a role that helps me do that? Or am I in a role that's highly technical where I'm very distant from the customer or from developing others? If I care about, even on top of that, I want growth. I want to be able to see myself elevate because I could be in the most purpose-driven world, but if I feel stagnant, I don't want to be here. So it's also about making sure I can grow. And a lot of times I'll find people who are getting paid really well. They've grown in their career, but they look back and they're like, I didn't really want to be an attorney.
Right, because the purpose is missing.
Yes. So we as leaders don't control their overall employee happiness, but we can help pay attention to their career happiness and say, how do I help you guide you on what is that purpose-driven right role for you? And then how do I create paths for your growth and your development? But ultimately, it's up to that employee to own their happiness. And as leaders, we can just control that we're adding value to them and we're making sure that they're satisfied.
I love it. I love the definition and the levers that you're giving to those leaders that they can pull to really shift the state of mind of the employees and help them move towards a state of both purpose and progress without sort of dictating control over their happiness. Right?
Absolutely.
Love it. And so, Sean, tell me, when is this book coming out? Because I can't wait to put my hands on it.
Yes, as of right now, February 1st. So I'm excited about it.
Love it. And another quick question, Sean, how large is your team, and any other key strategies you think we didn't really get to as we were having this conversation?
Yes. So my team right now, we're maybe 110. That's internal, external, and some other key strategies. One big thing that I've learned, especially as an executive, I get a lot of questions from managers saying, I really want to get to the executive level. I had a conversation last night with someone, to be honest. And I said, one of the most important things you can learn when you get to that director role is how to tell your team's story, because it's ultimately up to you to market your team's success and their performance. And the reason why is you know all the intricacies of your department. It can be very complex. And unfortunately, your leaders and your peers may not have time for all of that. So how do you do it in a simple, effective way that now everyone sees what's going on? And when you show that to your team as well, they can see it. But then other departments are also reaching out saying, hey, great job. I heard you all did this. It encourages them. They feel as if, wow, I'm in a place where what I do matters. So I'm a really big fan of how do you stop to tell your story better and your department's story, but do it in a simplified way that can be shared across the ecosystem and also back to your team.
Yes, and what an exceptional suggestion that is, Sean. And you're hitting on the power of storytelling, which is important not just for any individual, but also the leader, because the leader is now telling the story on the behalf of the entire team. And
Yes.
It makes a difference. It impacts, it shifts the team morale. It even shifts what new opportunities are going to come down the pipe to that team. And so that is just sage advice. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And so, Sean, now that we are coming towards the close of our conversation, any parting words you want to share on why, in your opinion, leaders today should ditch the pursuit of employee happiness and really jump on the employee value bandwagon?
Yes. We as leaders, we are usually the last one that are looked at when it comes to what is our emotional state? How are we feeling spiritually, mentally, physically? Because ultimately it is our jobs to serve our teams. They don't work for us, we work for them. And a lot of times we put ourselves in a position where when we are constantly chasing, giving them that euphoric feeling, it puts us in a place where we feel like we're failing. I'm not making it today. And if you are on a track record where you consistently feel as if you're not winning, it starts to impact your own morale. And as a leader, if you can take a step back during difficult times when no one's supposed to be happy because we're having hard times, but they're supposed to still feel as if you're that strong leader that's clear-minded in getting them through it, by focusing on being value-centric, that'll get you in a place where you have the mental aptitude and you're also physically and spiritually ready to go through this. So it also is to say that you are valued and you are valuable. So don't feel as if you owe everyone everything. Instead, focus on the things that you do owe them and you'll be successful.
I love it. And what I heard there in the background, Sean, was the concepts in this book really inspire the leaders to give themselves, their own selves, some grace. Because we often overlook ourselves across all those dimensions that you mentioned, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and so on. And it just gives them a better way to operate as opposed to operating in this always high pressure environment where we just want to make everybody else around us happy. right? We turn into those people pleasers, if you will.
Yes.
So I love the frameworks here. It's so powerful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I can't wait to continue our conversation, Sean, outside of this podcast. And I just want to say how lovely it is every time to have you on this show, because we just dive into these unknown territories, and you are an amazing sport and a phenomenal guest. So thank you.
Thank you. I love everything you're doing, and I'm excited to continue to have these conversations.
Thank you, Sean. There is no better time than now to stop playing small and tap into your zone of genius. With a Boardroom Zen executive coach by your side, experience the game-changing transformation, both internally and externally. Find out more on boardroomzen.com. And thank you for listening to my show. It means so much to me. I'd love for you to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. More power to you, and hope to see you soon.